I mean, let's be honest, life is tough, stress is real, headaches come and go just based off of your day-to-day life. The last thing you need is added stress, added headaches because of your fantasy football team. That's why in today's show, we're talking about a few players that cause straight migraines. Because at least if you know what to expect going into this season, maybe it eases the pain a little bit. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Now, no, in no way, shape, or form am I telling you that the players we're talking about today need to be straight avoided. That's not the purpose of this show. I'm doing this so at least you know that you're setting yourself up for a potential headache if you do end up with one of these players. I'm all for a little bit of risk on my fantasy football team, but I don't want overwhelming risk. So maybe if you find yourself with one of these players on your roster this season, maybe just try to find a way to surround them with some more stable options. But maybe you don't know who those more stable options are. Well, if you're subscribed here, that's going to be a huge help. However, getting yourself a 2025 fantasy football draft guide is only going to boost your chances of straight teabagging your opponents this year. Because it's got rankings and sleepers and breakouts and busts, injury analysis, and so much more. All you got to do is head over to tfhdraftguide.com and get yours pre-ordered right now. If you don't, your league mates will, and the next thing you know is you're going to be the one getting teabagged, and it's not an ideal situation. But all right, enough of that. Let's go ahead and talk about a few players that could cause some headaches in 2025. And let's just start off with one of the best running backs in the NFL, Achane of the Miami Dolphins, one of the most electrifying running backs in the NFL. This guy is a human highlight reel when he's on the field. Blazing speed, crazy efficiency, and RB1 upside. Last year, he averaged over 88 total yards per game and scored 12 total touchdowns. He also scored on average 15 fantasy points per game. But there's a problem. It's consistency. Achane's 2024 season was a wild ride. Do you realize that Achane had 6 games where he scored under 10 fantasy points last season? How about the fact that he scored over 40% of his season-long scoring in just 4 games last year? Now, a lot of people, myself included, didn't like the idea of large volume going the way of Achane. It boosted the injury risk just too much for me, but he proved a lot of people wrong and not only stayed pretty healthy, he racked up 281 total touches. Will he get those kind of touches in 2025 though? The Dolphins love to split carries between their running backs. Achane is going to have to deal with second-year running back Jalen Wright, and the team also just brought in Alexander Madison. Now, neither one of those guys are going to come in and unseat Achane as the RB1 on this roster, but they are capable options that are going to get weekly touches. How about the offensive line? Well, they just lost 5-time Pro Bowl left tackle Terron Armstead, who retired. Plus, there's drama surrounding their top pass catcher Tyreek Hill. Whether it's off-field issues or trade rumors, there's really a lot of unknowns surrounding his future in Miami. But above all of that, we have to look at Tua and his health. Achane without Tua is a totally different fantasy asset. Over the last 2 years, Achane has averaged 17.8 fantasy points per game in half PPR scoring in games that Tua has played. However, when Tua is not on the field and he's hurt and not playing, Achane is averaging 7.7 fantasy points per game. Is there anything that really makes you feel confident and comfortable that Tua is able to stay fully healthy for an entire season? The guy is 1 concussion away from possible retirement and has missed 15 games since becoming the starter in Miami. Now, there is no doubt that Achane is a potential top fantasy running back, but he is highly dependent on his injury-riddled quarterback. And there are more concerns about this overall offense in Miami than there has been over the last couple of years. Achane will remain a weekly boomer-bust option in 2025, and that right there can be such a headache. Another potential headache is A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's their stud wide receiver, sure, and when he's right, he's a league winner. Think about 1,400 yards a season, multiple wide receiver 1 finishes, but in 2024, Owning him felt like chasing a damn mirage out there. First, it was minor nagging injuries. He missed multiple games in 2024, had a hamstring issue early on in the season, and knee injuries towards the end of the season. Every week, you were just refreshing the injury report, praying that he was going to be a full go. Then we have the issues with inconsistent targets. Even when he's healthy, Jalen Hurts spreads the ball around to the likes of Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert, and now Saquon Barkley. Now don't get me wrong, A.J. Brown has some monster games, but they're getting a little bit more few and far between. And let me tell you what I mean by that. A.J. Brown last year, in just 4 games, scored 45% of his season-long scoring, and it really wasn't a fluke. The same exact thing happened in 2022 and 2023. In 2023, 45% of his season-long scoring came in just 4 games, and in 2022, the same thing. 42% of his season-long scoring came in just 4 games. Some big-time games. Those games won you your fantasy matchup that week, but really, he had a tendency to underperform quite a bit. Then we get to the Eagles being a run-heavy offense now. Philly loves to lean on their ground game, especially with Jalen Hurts having the ability to run himself and the workload that Saquon Barkley is going to see. That really caps A.J. Brown's ceiling some weeks. No team in the NFL threw the ball less in 2024 than the Philadelphia Eagles, and they had almost 30 attempts less than the team with the second fewest attempts, the Baltimore Ravens. Now let's not forget, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl with this strategy. It's not like they're going to be quick to change very much. Owning A.J. Brown means you have a wide receiver with wide receiver 1 potential and wide receiver 3 floor games that can absolutely burn you, and that is an absolute headache weekly. Now, speaking of a weekly headache, how about Jonathan Taylor, running back of the Indianapolis Colts? Now, we all know he's the Colts' workhorse running back. This guy was a top 5 pick just a couple years ago, but over the last 3 years, he has been a fantasy migraine. The injury woes just continue. Taylor missed games once again last season, including a chunk early on with an ankle issue. Only one time in 5 seasons in the NFL has Jonathan Taylor played over 15 games, and he's missed 17 games over the last 5 seasons. Now, the bad part about that is these injuries are starting to rack up, and his efficiency continues to hover right around average at best. But then we get to the whole quarterback issue in Indianapolis, the uncertainty that surrounds it. Anthony Richardson's inconsistent play and occasional absences really mess with this Indy offense. Without a reliable passing game, defenses just stack the box, and that really limits Taylor's big play potential. JT has been stuffed at or behind the line of scrimmage 93 times over the last 2 seasons. Then we also have the issue that Joe Flacco is no longer the backup if Anthony Richardson goes down. Who is it? It's Daniel Jones. So yeah, not a lot of upside there either. How about the offensive line? It's not going to be the same. Both center Ryan Kelly and right guard Will Fries are now gone to Minnesota. This needs to be an area of focus in the upcoming draft for the Colts if they want to find success on the ground. But it all leads to up and down production. Taylor's had RB1 weeks, but he's also had some stinkers where he's bottled up for less than 50 yards and no touchdowns. Like we've mentioned with other guys in this show, he's just so inconsistent here as of late. Almost 40% of his season-long scoring came in just the last 3 games of the 2024 season, where he averaged 30.3 fantasy points per game over that stretch. Those 3 games alone made his overall season look so much better than it really was. When you draft Jonathan Taylor, you're really hoping for 2021 Jonathan Taylor, but you're getting a guy who's right around RB15 at best some weeks. And I mean that literally. He's finished RB15 or lower in 6 of the 14 games he played in 2024. Taylor's talent keeps you drafting him, but the inconsistency and the injury risk makes you second guess every lineup decision, and that just causes headaches. Now, last but not least, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. of the Arizona Cardinals, their supposed rookie phenom. Everyone thought he'd be a plug-and-play wide receiver one with Kyler Murray slinging it down the field. Instead, he was a total fantasy headache. Inconsistency was his only consistency in 2024. Harrison had ups and downs. Actually, he had way more downs than he had up, if we're being honest. He only had 2 100-yard games, but had a whopping 10 games with less than 50 yards receiving. That's tough to stomach when he was drafted as high as he was in fantasy football drafts. Now, is it an issue with target competition in this offense? No, not really. Arizona chose to spread the ball around to the likes of Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and James Conner in the running game, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't enough for Marv to absolutely feast. Harrison's target share was laughable in 2024. Only 3 times all year did he see at least 10 targets. He had 9 games where he failed to get even 7 targets. Well, maybe it's because he couldn't win on his routes. Was that the problem? Let me check my notes. Nope, that wasn't it either. He was actually the wide receiver 10 overall in the NFL in total route wins. With a rookie wide receiver the caliber of Marvin Harrison on a crap team in a crap offense, he should have been getting fed a ton of targets. Think Malik Neighbors in New York. Instead, Marv had less targets on the year than guys like Jacoby Myers and Wan'Dale Robinson, even Jerry Jeudy, who all had at least 13 more targets on the year than Marvin Harrison Jr. So it's obvious he needs more volume. But if you've watched this show for any length of time, you know that we say targets are great, but it's all about them catchable targets. It's something we dive into every offseason because those are what really matters. Well, when we do that with Marvin Harrison Jr., we see a catchable target rate of only 68.1%. That's good enough to be the wide receiver 64 in that metric. Only 79 of his targets in 2024 were even deemed catchable. For context, Malik Neighbors had 126 catchable targets for New York. This offense and the play calling needs to drastically change in Arizona. Can we count on that from a team like the Cardinals, though? I don't think a lot of people have that warm fuzzy on the inside. Harrison's got all the tools to be a stud, but if Arizona can't figure out how to get him the ball, he is going to leave you frustrated week after week after week. All right, so there you have a few players that could cause some serious headaches in 2025, but you know I'm trying to be as interactive as I possibly can here this offseason. So I want to know, which player do you believe could cause the biggest headaches in 2025? Leave that comment down below in the comment section. If you do, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to respond to it. I want to know what players you're really worried about. Let's commiserate together. Now, if you found this video helpful here today, do me a favor and hit the like button if you haven't already. And if you haven't already subscribed, why the hell not? We're going to be giving you fantasy football tips all year long, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and maybe even hit the bell notification so you know every single time we post a video. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here today. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.